This video will teach how to make the basic crescent-shaped corsage with mini carnations required for the TSFA Level 2 exam. To make this corsage, you will need floral tape, wire, snips, and wire cutters, as well as 1 miniature carnation bud, 2 slightly open buds, 3 open blooms, and foliage of individual leaves, for example, pittosporum. To make the corsage, start by cutting a very thin wire in half, usually number 28. Cross-pierce midway through the calyx. Then, wrap the calyx and stem with floral tape, pulling tight and smooth. It is important to make sure that it is very tight and very smooth with a very thin wire in order to make sure that the corsage is not too heavy and does not have too much bulk to the stem. The use of light green floral tape is similar in color to the calyx and stem of the miniature carnation. Taping with the light green makes it appear more natural. Before creating the corsage, be sure to wire all of the miniature carnations. This will make it much faster later, especially with the quick time constraints of the exam. Another tip on making the corsage as fast as possible is to not tape all the way down the carnation stem. You will be cutting this part off anyways to remove excess bulk, therefore it is not necessary. After preparing the carnations, you will begin to wire the foliage. Since you will likely be given a stem of leaves, pick off the best leaves of varying sizes. Make sure that there are at least 9, so that there are enough leaves to cover the back of the corsage and create transition in the shape. When you remove the leaves, cut them off so that there is a little bit of stem at the bottom for the wire and tape to hold on to. To actually wire the leaves, you will use stitch wiring with a 28th wire. This means going from the back of the leaf, creating a small stitch in the front along the main vein, and then coming back on the back side, wrapping the wire around the bottom stem of the leaf. As with the mini carnations, it is important to wire and tape the foliage before making the corsage for time efficiency. Once all the leaves and miniature carnations have been wired and taped, it is time to begin creating the corsage. Take the miniature carnation bud and tape the smallest piece of foliage directly behind it. Then, cut off all of the excess wire to reduce bulk. Next, place a slightly open carnation along the backbone of the corsage. Place its petals just above the stem of the first bud. So far, the elements of this corsage should make a slightly curved line. The space between these two flowers should be the largest gap in the entire corsage. Don't forget to trim wire as needed to remove bulk. After adding both of these carnations, it is important to add greenery on the sides. The first one you will add will be at about the same height as the second carnation placed. Tape this in place and then cut off any of the excess wire. There is no need to tape that far down as you are cutting it relatively short. Next, place the second leaf slightly lower than the first one. This will help emphasize the curved shape later on, as the leaves will not be at equal heights, making it seem asymmetrical and curved. Again, remove any excess wire for reduced bulk. Next is the grouping of the 3 largest miniature carnations in order to create the focal point. All 3 of the calyxes should come together at the point where the taped stems meet. There should barely be any spacing between these flowers. In order to achieve this, fold over the wires of the carnations to about 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and 135 degrees. This will create an acute, right, and obtuse angle. Starting with the carnation with the greatest angle, tape it directly behind the second carnation placed. Next, tape the second large carnation slightly below and slightly to the left of the first large carnation placed. After taping both of these carnations in, don't forget to use the wire cutters to cut off any excess wire bulk. Then, you will add in the third miniature carnation of this section. Tape it slightly below and slightly to the right of the previous carnation. These 3 miniature carnations should all meet together to create a focal point of the corsage. After this, it is important to add foliage on the sides in order to frame the shape of the crescent corsage. Add 2 of the larger leaves on each side of the miniature carnations. This will frame the shape of the corsage and emphasize a crescent shape. Again, place the one on the left slightly higher than the one on the right and cut off any excess wire bulk. Here is what the back of the corsage should look like so far. Then, add the last miniature carnation that is slightly open and bend it almost all the way back. Place this underneath but still with a slight gap to the large 3 miniature carnations that create the focal point. After taping this in, cut off any excess wire as you are almost done with the corsage. This carnation should be angled slightly to the right and down in order to create the crescent shape. Finally, add another very small leaf to the very bottom of the corsage underneath the slightly open bud at the bottom. Fold it almost completely over and then tape it in place. The final step is to cut off all of the extra wire in a tapered look, leaving one long one and then a shorter one and then the rest of the bulk in order to show purpose in the way that the corsage is finished. Tape these 2 wires together for a completed look. Now you are all finished with the entire corsage. If it is not as crescent shaped as you hoped, you can always encourage the flowers into that curved position, both vertically and horizontally.